Hi, I'm Felix Finkbeiner. I'm the founder of Plant for the Planet. That's a children and youth initiative with the goal of convincing the world to plant 1 trillion trees. When I was 9 years old, my teacher asked me to give a little presentation about the climate crisis in my class. And when I prepared that presentation, I found out about Wangari Maathai, a woman from Kenya that had started a movement planting 30 million trees in 30 years. And that inspired us that we could plant some trees as well to fight the climate crisis. And I suggested to my classmates at the end of my presentation that we could plant 1 million trees in each country of the world. And that was obviously a crazy, absurd idea, but my classmates liked it. And a few weeks later, we planted our first tree. And that's really how it began. We were incredibly lucky in lots of different ways, with lots of children and youth then joining us and planting trees with us. I think that certainly the fact that we were so young really helped us with the project. I mean, for instance, after 1 year after we started, we had planted about 50,000 trees, and we then did a press conference in which we announced it. And as a result, there were about 500 articles and media responses in general across Germany reporting about our 50,000 trees. And obviously, if some adults had planted 50,000 trees, nobody would have cared. But since we were 9, 10, 11-year-olds that had planted 50,000 trees, people reported about it everywhere, and that allowed us to grow even further. And I think our age helps us to speak incredibly clearly about the climate crisis and how serious of an issue it is. And I think Greta is the best example for that. I think what Greta Thunberg and her movement has shown is how powerful our generation can be when we unite together and demand serious action in tackling the climate crisis. At the same time, I think this movement was only possible because so many young people had already been mobilizing other young people for so many years. And Greta Thunberg was essentially like the spark that allowed all of that to ignite. But there were so many, and thank God there's so many other fantastic activists that make her work possible. But I'm so deeply grateful for what she has done, showing the power of our movement and also forcing governments to act and take our generation seriously. We have the global goal of planting 1 trillion trees. That's increasing the global forest cover by about 30%. And of course, tree planting at that scale can only happen if we have very strong support from governments that help us and that invite us to plant trees in their countries. And luckily, over 50 countries around the world have already made tree planting pledges and forest restoration pledges. So there's absolutely that government buy-in to make that happen. In total, we now have about 82,000 ambassadors. So these are young children and youth that we have educated at our academies and have become part of Plant for the Planet. On top of that, with donations, we were able to plant over 8 million trees in the last few years. And of course, our ambassadors have planted many, many more. And we also run a global tree counter in which every company, every government, every organization that plants trees can report the trees that they've planted. And that way we have over 13 billion trees that have been planted in the last 12 years. Our goal of planting 1 trillion trees is still a very, very far away. So what we are doing is trying to get that message out there into the media, into the minds of people all across the world. And we're also making it as easy as possible for anyone to support tree planting. To do that, we've created an app. It's called Plant for the Planet. It's available for iPhones and Android phones. And it's very simple. It allows everyone that plants trees to register the trees they've planted and where exactly they've planted it and so on. And at the same time, it also allows users to find great tree planting projects all across the world that they can support with donations. So now it's incredibly easy for everyone to plant trees, and nobody has an excuse that they cannot help. The climate crisis is the most serious challenge we are facing, our generation is facing. And we are running out of time to solve it. So we have to drastically reduce carbon emissions as fast as possible, and we need to plant as many trees as possible, 1 trillion in total. Otherwise, it will be impossible to prevent catastrophic climate change.